What do you want me to do to kick it off?
I'm going to kick us off right now. So,
Okay,
ladies
good,
and
good,
gentlemen, welcome to Homeschooling and the Arts. My name is Jeremiah Lorrig. I serve as the director of HSLDA's media relations, as well as HSLDA's Generation Joshua. And today I'm excited to talk to you all about something that I love so much that I went to see it 3 times in Washington, D.C. C.S. Lewis's Prince Caspian in its first professional stage adaptation. So today I'm joined by the people who made my dream as a Narnia fan possible, Noah, Nicole, and Garret. Welcome to the show, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Great. Well, Nicole and Noah and your team, you helped bring the creative side of this together. And then Garret and your team, you helped give the platform for it in Washington, D.C. And I'm super excited.
We got out of the way and let them do it.
That's important for producers sometimes.
It is. Know your place.
Well, I want to start by kind of exploring how you got involved in this story. So Noah and Nicole, I guess let's start with you. How did you get involved in theater in the first place?
Well, I kind of was born into it. My parents actually founded this ministry, the Academy of Arts, in 1971, before I was born, and before they had any children, and started it and really just were faithful for 53 years. All of us children in their family, we all grew up being very much included as a part of it with them. So we were never kind of, the kids were over here and the ministry was over here. They just, we all grew up helping in all the different ways and really actually falling more in love with communication and all its different forms. So Dad had a big vision. It just wasn't theater. He wanted to get involved in TV and movies and radio and everything, to any way that he could actually communicate messages of hope. So yeah, that's really how we began. And then Noah and I met through he was coming into the academy to lead one of our teams. So
yeah, I got involved in college. So I was going to a different college, found out about the Academy of Arts, and came over and got involved in one of their summer tours that go to churches for one-night meetings. So I got involved in that over the summer, finished up my last year of school, came back and did another summer of that traveling, and then got right involved that next fall and never looked back, and married Nicole, and we now have the privilege of running the Academy of Arts. So we're very blessed.
That's great.
They have a college, so I was able to go through their college program as well. So that's really where my training came from, is the conservatory that the Academy has.
Nice. And Noah, you mentioned kind of already being more or less engaged in the theater. What got you involved in theater in the first place?
It was really just serving, kind of like Nicole was saying. My parents were very much the same way of just, I remember my dad having my 2 older brothers and I get up when we were 5, 6, 7, and he would just get up and make us quote passages of scripture, passages of famous speeches, part of all of the Declaration of Independence, parts of all sorts of stuff. He was a great teacher, but loved for us to use it to be a blessing and help people. And so we would go to old folks' homes and we would get up in front of people and quote these things. And then as we went through school, he would have us involved in all sorts of fine arts things as well. We very much wanted us to be well-rounded. So I played sports, did choir, did the fine arts, did all the different things. And so it was very much my parents growing that in me. And I remember doing some on the stage more in college, and it really kind of actually wasn't that appealing to me, because I felt like it was, just for me, it was very pointless. The message that we did, the play that we did, didn't really have a point, didn't really have much of a meaning. And I was kind of like, I think I'm done with this. I spent all this time on this. I don't think there's much of a reason or point to this. But then I found out about the Academy of Arts and how they use it for ministry and for helping and investing in other people and seeing families and young people grow and blossom in their communication. And that lit my fire, that there's a much deeper meaning behind just a play on a stage that's going on there. And so that's what got me excited and keeps me excited about theater.
Great. So before we get to Prince Caspian in particular, after one of the productions, I was talking with some of the actors and getting their autographs. I actually have a full collection of the Pevensey characters' autographs.
Oh,
but
that's great.
I was talking to them, and I told them I work with HSLDA, and they said, "Oh yeah, like 97% of the team is connected to homeschooling." So I wanted to ask you, why do you think that is? What enables homeschoolers to engage theater so well?
It really does help, I think, with the flexibility of homeschooling. You know, even for us touring, we've got young people out here. You're doing Narnia. You have to have some younger cast members, and so of course they're still in school. So it helps so much that they are homeschooled because they can just take their school right with them, and that opens up a lot more opportunities than if they were having to be in a traditional school setting. And then I also think just the understanding in the homeschool movement that there's more than one way to teach someone, more than one way that everyone processes information or learns. I know for myself, I was very shy growing up. I would have rather flunked a test than asked a question in the class. You know, I didn't want the teacher to look at me or anything. In fact, that's really one of the things that the theater helped me with, was being able to come outside of myself and express the things that were in me that I didn't have a freedom in my own life to do. So I think with homeschooling, there is more of that mindset that not everybody's going to learn the same way. And so that really does help me, because as I direct, I bring that mindset to directing. I don't direct everyone the same. I'm trying to find out how they process information, how they can learn the best. And so I think that flexibility of not only schedules, but also just different styles and ways of teaching. And it's been a joy. It really is. We still go to Christian schools with our ministry, and we go to all different places. But I will say that's probably why we've got a lot of homeschoolers on the road. They can take their school with them, and they learn well.
I first heard about Logos Theater's productions at the Bible Museum last year when you did The Horse and His Boy, which is my favorite book in the Narnia series. Actually, it's my favorite book of all time. I'm going to be real. But one of the young men who was working as a puppeteer there, he had done some of our Generation Joshua summer camps, and so I had encountered him and his heart for ministry and everything there. And then when he told me that he was going to be at the Museum of the Bible, I was like, I've got to go. And then when I found out it was The Horse and His Boy, I was like, there's literally nothing that can stop me. So,
Wow.
Garret, no, I'm super excited. Garret, when you see homeschoolers engaging with the Museum of the Bible, have you seen anything that kind of shows you, oh, wow, there's something different here?
Yeah, I mean, we've always considered ourselves a resource, and we look at ourselves and take very seriously the subject matter expertness of Museum of the Bible and everything that it encompasses, and of course, arts broadly. So we could talk about theater, and I think when we say theater, we all know what we're talking about here. But arts broadly is a thing that we've seen a vacuum in, and we want to do more of, especially in our area. So when we see homeschoolers come through the museum, I would say, I don't have the demographic data on it. So, but I would know that for the matinee shows and the morning shows and things like that we're doing with Logos Theater, the majority of them are homeschoolers. So it's great to see that engagement go from really good at the museum to even better. And I think it's really a cry of families wanting safer entertainment for their kids to engage with, and not just for entertainment's sake, but for learning's sake. There's no reason that those two things can't be true at the same time, where you're getting a great story, you're laughing, you're crying, you're having fun, but you're also learning as well excellent life lessons. So it's been a blessing for the museum to have Logos here, because it's engaged our homeschool community even more than we already were. So.
One of the things that I firmly believe is that wisdom and knowledge are stored in books and stories. And of course, knowledge is mostly stored in nonfiction. But wisdom is often stored in those stories, those fictional stories that can really tap into our soul. And HSLDA's teen branch, Generation Joshua, is about to start Prince Caspian in our online Zoom book club. And if you're interested in that, and if you are, you can check out the link. We'll put that in the comments and the show notes. But the Generation Joshua was doing the Prince Caspian book. What is your favorite wow moment in this C.S. Lewis story?
My favorite wow moment? Wow, I don't know what you're defining as wow.
Anything that kind of knocks your socks off or catches your attention.
I mean, I'd go with the moment. I think that's the wow for me is, I mean, there's several, but there's a lot of them. One for me is when Aslan kind of reveals himself to Lucy. I mean, that's a wow moment. She's the only one of the four that sees him. And of course, from the Christian perspective, there's some beautiful things there of faith and following when you don't fully understand, when you can't fully see. The Christian life is very much about that. And so that's a huge moment, I think, when she finally gets to see him, but then the other three siblings still don't see him, and still she has to follow, and is willing to even leave her three siblings to go follow. That's a huge moment. I think a lot of us might be willing to give up things if some stranger doesn't like what we're doing or doesn't agree with the direction we're going. But when you have your own family members not fully understanding or agreeing with what you're seeing or what you're doing, I think there's huge moments in that to gain wisdom of truly understanding why you're doing what you're doing and being willing to follow in the face of adversity.
And I think a couple of times in that moment, particularly in the show, we have had people yell out amen and begin to clap when Lucy says, I must follow him whether any of you do or not. And I think that really, I just love Lewis so much because he doesn't cheat you on the wow factor of a great story as far as the rise and fall and building of real people and all of the fantasy that you're going to expect of trees coming to life and water gods exploding bridges and disappearing telmarines. He doesn't, cheat you on that to give you the depth of character and story and humanity that he reaches so well down into in all of these books. So I think for me, I love helping people visualize, but not cheapening that visual. I think sometimes it's very difficult to visualize things like this. You almost can be set up for disappointment because our minds are so bent towards a beautiful imagination, and Lewis is really digging into our imagination. So sometimes you're like, I shouldn't put a visual to this because it might limit people's minds and their ability to imagine these stories. But what we're trying to do is go inside our imaginations and put those onto the stage as best we can, and not limit it, but give it a platform to be able to let your mind come with us. And we're not going to give you everything, but we're going to give you enough to knock your socks off, but still have enough left over for you to imagine along with us. These fantastic books.
When I was first exposed to the Chronicles of Narnia by my mom when I'm the oldest of 7 kids, and she didn't know what to do with me. I would never take naps. I was rambunctious. I was a difficult child from the very beginning. And she was like, what do I do with this kid? I don't know what to do. So she would take me and put me in one of those jumper things that would hang in a doorway.
Yes.
I don't know if those are still a thing.
Jump up.
Oh yeah.
Yes, that's exactly it. But she would put me in there and she would read the Chronicles of Narnia to me out loud. This is before I even knew English. So this was not going to be touching my mind, but I think it touched my heart. I think hearing my mom's voice and the articulation of deep truths, even though I didn't understand them with my mind, had an impact on me. And I think that's kind of the power of Lewis's stories. I have a copy of Prince Caspian that was my great grandmother's copy, and it's one of the few family heirlooms we have because we had a fire that burned my parents' house and my grandparents' house down. So it's a treasure to me. But I was opening it up and thinking about this and just remembering kind of that heritage of this story. And I'm wondering, Garret, with what brought this production and this story to your attention and made it something that you're like, we've got to be a part of giving this a wider audience?
Yeah, I mean, it started with Horse and His Boy. That's where all of this kicked off. So I think once we got rolling, I think Noah and Nicole and I had the vision to bring the rest of them to the museum, and we're working on all of that now. But yeah, it started with Horse and His Boy, and it started with us needing to find really a cornerstone for our theater. So between the 2 or even 3 productions that we'll be doing each year with Noah and Nicole and Logos Theater, we're talking about somewhere around 80 to 100 nights out of our season. So it really is, they are kind of the backbone of our theater. And we were looking for, that cornerstone, that staple piece for us to build off of, because the idea for us is that we're not just going to have just musicals or just plays or things of that nature, but we're going to have a broad spectrum of art in our theater, well over 200 nights a year. That's the goal, but we have to have a cornerstone piece. For me, there's no better cornerstone piece than something that C.S. Lewis has done. And you could pick a myriad of things, but what's so interesting is that there's the highly intellectual stuff that Lewis does, and you may touch some teenagers and some college kids with that, and then certainly older than that. But the thing that Narnia has is that you can capture a 4-year-old and you can capture an 84-year-old in almost the same ways, but at different life points. And so that became a very appetizing thing for us, and an easy and appealing thing for us to say, hey, if you're willing to do this, we would like to make an investment in you guys. We want you to be here. We want you to be effectively a part of the team. And then we want to build out multi-year programming with you. After I got to see what they were doing in Taylor's at their home base there in South Carolina, it just became very apparent to me that Chronicles of Narnia is just the beginning. So it's where we're starting, it's where we're investing currently, but there's so much more that we've been talking about as a team in what 2026, 2027, 2035 looks like. So yeah, we're planning a very, very long roadmap here. This isn't a short-term thing for us. And so Caspian, to answer your question, was the next step. So Horse and His Boy was step 1, Caspian was step 2, and I can't tell you about steps 3 and 4. So,
well, I'm curious. The first book in the Chronicles of Narnia came out 74 years ago. 74 years ago, and it's still impacting culture and society. And I'm wondering why. And Noah, could you maybe talk a little bit about your journey through this process and how it brought you to the C.S. Lewis estate and kind of the relationships that have grown out of that?
Yeah, so I'll try to do it quickly. So originally we had always said, and Nicole had said, as she's our main director, she had always said, there's no way we'll do Narnia. Like she mentioned earlier, you don't want to limit people's imagination. You don't want to do it poorly. And so we really wanted to do it well. And God, never say never, right? God has a way of helping you through that. So we got to a point anyway that we ended up going to Narnia. And as we did those productions and got into them, I think the biggest thing for us is seeing the power of them and I don't know how you would say it, Nicole, the opportunity to do these in the best way that would impact the most people. And so
I don't know, even just being able to do our own adaptations, because
right.
Up till then we hadn't really seen Narnia represented well on the stage. I think that's one of the reasons I was so hesitant. Was because can you do them well without CGI, without all of that? So,
and then getting to when she started doing, we found there was no script for Prince Caspian. So then we reached out to the C.S. Lewis estate and they said, yeah, there is no script for doing a professional production on the stage. So adapt one and you can get it checked with us. So she went through that adaptation process. And through that, we got to meet Douglas Gresham, the stepson of C.S. Lewis, which was wonderful. He got to come over for the opening night of Prince Caspian, which was wonderful. A little terrifying, but wonderful.
What was it like to have him sitting? I'm assuming he was in the front row, just knowing that you're on stage being a villain. And
the funny thing is, he kept dropping all these things, saying all the time, I'm going to come to rehearsals. I'm going to watch your rehearsals, see how it's going. But then he'd get busy and he'd do these interviews and he'd be tired. And I'd be like, no, you're good. You can go back and lay down, because I'm still figuring out how to explode river, bridges and all this stuff. I'm like, no, you can go lay down. You're fine. But Noah actually, I don't know, the Lord worked that out because Noah wasn't in the play that time. So he got to take him around to all of his, so when they found out he was coming, obviously we were able to secure a lot of different events for him. So TV, radio, live events and everything. So he was going around doing all of these events, and Noah was taking him. So I think he and Noah are like, you know, they became really best buds.
We got to talk about all sorts of things. It was awesome.
But then when he came to opening night, yeah, I was terrified, but also just confident in the team and that we had done the best we possibly could, I felt like, with what the Lord had given us. And he's so funny because he's very, even though he's lived in Australia a lot, but he's very British, very staid. And so he was standing there, and I was talking to him, and he just said, well, that was the best opening night I've seen in 40 years. And I was like, okay. He was, but just no excitement about it when he said it. It was just a very matter-of-fact kind of a thing.
Very British.
And even in the video we played before the show, where he says, you know, and it should be a very good production, and this is, you know, it's just, he would just say things. And I think that was a real joy, because then he just started entering into what was happening. I think he started to notice what was going on, and that, you know, he'd been doing this a long time. He's producer for all the films that the Walden Studios did and Disney. And so it's not like he wasn't around production life a lot. He really was. And I think he recognized that there was something special going on. That's actually how he came over. When he started vetting my script, he was not the first person vetting it. They moved it to him because I had the, I don't know, audacity to ask some questions as to why I couldn't do certain things I really felt like needed to happen. And lo and behold, he started helping me. But he kept saying, you know, I wonder how you're going to do this. I would love to see how you're going to do this effect. And so I asked Noah, I said, do you think he'd want to come? So we asked him, and he did come. But coming back to Horse Nose Boy, the stakes just raised, because I think once you've established yourself, unfortunately, success can either kill you or make you better. And I was like, Lord, please don't let this kill us, because now we've got to live up to Prince Caspian. And the Horse Nose Boy was dedicated to Douglas Gresham by Lewis. He remembers him walking. He told us the story of him walking down these old wooden steps and holding out the manuscript to him as a boy and pointing to the manuscript. And he looked down and saw his name there and his brother's name. And how precious was that, you know? So also terrifying, because now he's going to come see the book brought to life that, you know, was dedicated to him. But again, he really loved it. He felt like some people came to him and were saying, this needs to be in New York. This is Broadway level. This should be performing all over the nation. And he had some really good, wise words to say about that. He said, there's a reason they're here in Taylor's. And I believe this is the kind of caliber that when it is ready to be taken to the nation, somebody is going to see it and take it to the right place. And it may be New York, it may be somewhere else, but it's going to go to the right place. And I remember him saying that in kind of an interview he and I were doing. And when this happened with the museum, I thought, wow, how neat, because he kind of was saying that it was going to happen. So.
Yeah, I thought it was so interesting, Nicole, when you guys were talking about doing Narnia and how you didn't want to, and it always makes my mind go back to things like Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, where people love the originals, and then it's like we want to adapt these things and bring them to and expand on the story, and then all of a sudden everybody who's loved them is either divided or not divided at all, and they all just hate it or whatever.
Yes.
And so I remember you talking about that and thinking, wow, what a challenge, because there's not too many of those stories that exist in our world. It seems like there's a handful of them that
there really are.
Millions and tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people adore. And that is it's such a mantle. It's such a weight to do and do well. Especially when you're talking about something that is obviously an allegory for our faith. So I always, whenever you guys talk about that story, I always just kind of commend you, because you're taking the gifts that the Lord has given you and you're stewarding them well. So, and it's apparent when you see the reactions of people afterwards, that especially when they came in and they're like, I was prepared to not enjoy this. I was prepared to you missed this and you missed this, and that's not how that happened, and all of those things. And those are not the reviews you get. The reviews you get are like, how did you capture a book in 2.5 hours? Like, how is this possible? How did you do this? So anyway, it's a gift that you guys have, and we're blessed to partner with you. So
we're grateful.
And it's a lot of it's a lot of pressure to bring something that's so beloved to the stage. And like you said, there's all the expectations there. What are some of the kind of the other behind the scenes things, the kind of those crazy moments where things went weird and you're like, oh no, how do we save the moment? Like, tech issues, for example, when things die all of a sudden.
Fire alarms, is that a
yeah.
Oh no.
Fire alarm the other day in the museum. Well, I would like to say too, I thought it was wonderful how the Lord had the Museum of the Bible be the place to bring these books to the nation, because I mean, what better place where the Word of God, and sometimes people can think, oh, the Word of God, it's dry and boring. My dad used to say, don't think the Word of God is dry and boring because yours has dust on the outside. Just, you open it up, it's the most exciting book, the most dramatic book in all the world. That was another thing Dad was always saying, and he loved the Museum of the Bible. He was our founder of our ministry, and he loved it. He prayed for it, and he knew that we were going to be partnering with them. And I think, Lewis's life is transformed by the Word of God, by the truths of the Word of God. And so how perfect for his books to take flight from there. And I will say, technically, you love tech until it doesn't work. I mean, it can be your friend until it isn't your friend. And
so true.
There's so many things here that we've got to double and triple check before every single show. Even the horses, the puppetry that we do, that puppetry has to be checked before and after every single show, and all the mechanics have to be double checked. And of course, we're flying trees in this one. We're flying water gods and a lot of that kind of stuff. They have their protocol of how we check it every single night. So, I mean, funny things that have happened. We've had a horse leg come off right in the middle of a running chase scene. Nobody knew that puppeteer was holding that horse leg on. And we learned very quickly after performing so many times in a row to make double and triple parts of the horse. So you could go right off the stage, switch legs, and get back on the stage as quickly as possible. Noah, unfortunately, we tease him a lot, but he does a lot of interviews even during shows. So he went on with this in his ear the other night as Miraz. So, tech is a great thing, but it can trip you up. Yeah. But it's
fun. So
Miraz, what is it? Miraz was ahead of his time in that scene.
That was it. Yeah. So the cast call me Captain AirPod now. So it's fun. That's great.
Yes. But the show must go on. And Narnia first, I mean, our very first time, we took Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe to Scotland with the
Fringe Festival.
Yeah, to the Fringe Festival with the European script. And just figuring out how to disappear Aslan, and then having to do that multiple times, that entire trick, that whole scene of the stone table is a giant magic trick. Everything inside it had to do with what we were doing to eventually disappear and reappear Aslan. So everything has to go according to plan, even, and so learning that and learning how to hit your mark every single time. And if it doesn't, I mean, we had a pillar that was a part of that sequence one time, a giant pillar on stage, and it was a very important part of that magic trick, and it fell directly over. I turned around and saw it falling on the stage, and it enveloped it was hollow inside, it enveloped a person on stage. And I thought, she's dead. Oh my goodness, she's died on stage. And no, they got it back up, and the girl was fine. And then after the show, somebody came up to me and said, I cannot believe how you did that. It was like so symbolic of the world of the White Witch just collapsing, and the symbolism there. And I'm going,
you got it. You got it.
Yeah.
Yes, well, I'm so glad you enjoyed that. You won't be seeing it at the next show, but I'm glad you caught it this time.
It was experimental, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
So, for a lot of our audience as homeschool parents, or they're wondering, how do I introduce my students to the arts? How do we introduce our students to theater in particular? What's some advice that you would give to a homeschool mom who's getting excited about all your backstage stories and this idea of telling beautiful tales with deep meaning? How do they take a first step into this world?
Well, I have great news for them. We actually take our thing of the Academy of Arts, our productions. We have more than 100 of them, and we take them into homeschool groups, and we will come with a trained team to their homeschool group, and we'll send the scripts ahead and let them be involved in a 1 week, what we call a dramatic word seminar, where we come in with all the lights, the sets, the costumes, the props, the trained team, and we help them do a full-scale production in 1 week. Oh, wow. And we're talking and discipling those kids and talking through their different life challenges they're going through, and then helping them put together an incredible production. And that started, and really that might be one of the reasons too, to answer your previous question, why there's so many homeschoolers involved with us, is we're going out traveling with these teams all year around the whole country. And we're recruiting young people when we meet them, and young people that we really feel like have leadership qualities and we would like to invest in even further. And so that's a lot of the ways. We have drama teams that travel in the summer that are made up of young people. We're traveling with Ruth this summer. And it is very important, in my opinion, if they are going to have a well-rounded education and even an understanding of themselves and how they work in the world and how they can communicate to the world, that they learn this skill of communication and an ability to feel and to express your feelings in healthy ways. And it is so life-giving, and we watch young people go from, not being able to look someone in the eye to being great leaders and so equipped to lead in their homes and in their churches and their communities. And so I would say get involved, but don't fall in love with theater itself, please. I think we can all look around at the world and see what this whole thing of the arts can really do to someone if it's self-focused. And it can be really destructive. So I would say be careful with what you do. Content is king. Look for people who are really trying to redeem the arts back to a wholesome grounding of what it actually is for. And
I would like to. I don't know. I don't know that side, that story, that piece of the story for you guys. But I would like to speak to that for just a second, because you just touched on something that is the most important, I think, that we've talked about so far in this conversation, is that a theater and just the arts are very attractive. They're very attractive to people, and that's not an accident. And we see what television and theater and movies and all of these different forms of art have sort of turned into and been sort of captured by. And I was one of those people. So I didn't grow up in theater. I didn't grow up doing theater, anything like that. And I got involved in theater, I felt like, because of maybe a void that I had in myself that I was missing from a previous thing that I was doing, which was playing baseball, playing sports. There was a pressure to it. I pitched in college and in high school, and that adrenaline and that pressure and all of those things, I looked at theater and thought, number one, I'm competitive. So of course I can do that. Like, I've never done it before, but I can do it. And I can probably do it better than that person. So I'm going to go do it. And then you find it translating. You find the pressure, you find the adrenaline, you find the fun, you find the competitive, and you find all of those things there. And it captured me. And thank God, praise God, that I was saved, really. And it isn't that there aren't Christians who aren't on Broadway or in Hollywood or whatever. Of course there are. Of course there are. But if you go in with the mindset of, well, it's not going to get me. It's not, I'm going to be true to the word. I'm going to be true to the Lord, and all of those other things. You're fooling yourself, number one. And I was brought out of that because I was going down that path of having doors open, having opportunities to go and do and go at a higher level and do more professional things and all of the stuff. And so what you've just touched on is very important. Don't just get attracted to theater. Don't just get attracted to arts. Look for those things that are redeeming, because it's a trap. It's a slippery slope. Really, and of course, again, we have the examples of people who have done it. But I would say it's a cautionary tale. So
And anyone who's out there who's like, oh, is Garret kind of crazy? Well, 2,400 years ago, Plato was talking about the dangers of unleashing theater for the sake of theater. He says that there needs to be a point, there needs to be a theme, there needs to be some truth at its core that really speaks to people's hearts and minds. And I think that's one of the things that theater does is it helps us to engage the fullness of a person. We're not just hearing a story or reading a story on a page. We begin to see real people acting it out, and the story becomes more alive. For me, when I was watching Prince Caspian, I had this moment of realization. It's like, I have imbibed this story my whole life, and now it has flesh and blood. Like it is a real thing. Still, it's on stage, I understand all that, but it was real in a whole new way. And so when somebody is, they see their kid has an interest in theater, what are some of the things that they can do, like a resource or something to kind of feed it in a healthy way?
I think it has to, as we've been saying, has to be grounded in something, in truth. And I think so, very specifically for resources, we've been blessed to be able to, Nicole and her parent, I mean, their parents started this 53 years ago. So we thankfully have a lot of resources of scripts, of smaller cuttings or readings that people do, especially elementary, high school will do for like their fine arts competitions each year. So
Nicole Stratton's publications.
Yeah, so we've been blessed to have that, where they can go and look at those. There's a lot of resources there for them to immediately start learning, meditating, memorizing, using in their homeschool groups.
We have some
would be
videos
really
on there as well. Some just
training videos,
videos on, and then we're producing more all the time. And right now working on a curriculum that will have videos with it as well, because it's not just you look at the script. You need to be told and helped to how to interpret a script and how to break down some of those insecurities you might have personally, to be able to interpret and be able to feel and express those feelings. So,
and is that information available on the Academy of Arts website?
Yes.
Okay. And what is the address for that?
Well, the academyofarts.org, and then also you'd see on there the Nicky Chavers publications. It used to be NC Publications because Dad didn't want to put his name there, but he passed away 2 years ago, and I said I'm putting his name on there because he was the one who really got all these resources started. So, and he really was such a visionary. Like, Dad was on television by the time he was 9 years old. He had 2 of his own TV shows, an incredible boy soprano, great actor, phenomenal writer, wrote his first play at 16 that's still being done today. Like, he could have gone anywhere, done anything. So to me, I don't ever look at talent as like, oh, that's just that God's given us, we're made in his image. So we have abilities to do incredible things. And I've been privileged to be, growing up with a man who could do all these things, but he took what he could do and put it into serving others and helping others and giving others opportunities. So that's really why Nicky Chavers Publications is there, is for young people like you're talking about. They're going, how do I do this? What kind of script should I do? How should I get involved? How can I learn? And we're just pouring resources into there for parents who are looking and searching. And then again, it is very difficult to do production. I can say this. I have the right to say this. So that's why we have the Dramatic Word seminars, is to come out to your group, because trying to rent the tech and then figure it out and try to get all the sets built, and even building a team. I mean, building a team is very, very hard. So a lot of times there's sole teachers out there trying to do this. She's trying to get something together, and people are dropping out and can't show up for rehearsals. And she's pulling her hair out trying to have the arts in her school or in her homeschool group. And we're there to hold up their arms and say, hey, bring our team in. We're trying to keep that affordable for them, to be able to have a price where they can really still have it come in and, make these young people have an opportunity to do this. Now, I'm going to say one more thing. That's at that level. Then when they want to go to the next level and keep training, praise God that Museum of the Bible has started opening up a way for young people who are wanting to do this professionally to have a place to come and perform on a longer term basis, to be able to do this even after they get that training and they go, because that was my thing. I'm training all these young people, hundreds of them, and they're incredible. And they get to a certain level. I can't take them all at the Logos. I can't have them performing all the time there. It's growing too much. There had to be other locations that would step up, who had state-of-the-art places to bring in young people and, and adults and older people, all of us, to be able to come up and do this. And museum has really led the way in that.
So speaking
there's
of
a lot of hope.
Yeah. Speaking of the museum, Garret, if somebody's like wanting to introduce their kids to theater, you said you have a theater and you keep it full with programming. How would people find out, especially homeschool parents who maybe they're bringing their kids from California to Washington D.C. for a big field trip or something like that? What would you recommend, and how would they find out information about that?
Sure. It sounds like the cliche, but it's we really lean into our newsletter. They get those folks in our membership get access to tickets before anybody gets access to tickets. They also get access to what's coming up before anybody gets access to it. So just visiting the website, which is museumofthebible.org, ensuring that you're signing up for the newsletter at a minimum. That's going to get you involved with what's coming and what's coming months away. So I know we got Pilgrim's Progress that's coming in August, and we're already talking about it. So yeah, we're preparing those folks ahead of time, and like I said, to get even earlier access or to know what's coming, as far away as a year, our membership is where it's at. So it's the simple stuff. It's nothing complicated, but yeah, we communicate that often about what is coming because we're building it. So we've just really started a year ago. We were doing some odds and ends things every other year, but we really leaned in heavy after last year. Last year, I think we had maybe 80 nights, 90 nights, something like that. We'll be over 150 nights this year, and we'll be over 200 nights next year. And that's probably where we'll level out, is around 200 nights of air quotes entertainment in our theater. So from concerts to worship nights to theater to musicals, you name it, intellectual symposiums, film screenings. Yeah, it's broad art.
And we talked for a minute about looking for the quality, the things the dangers of theater, but how to find the good angle there. What are some of the healthy things of theater that you see students come into theater and they come away stronger because of this exciting experience of putting together a production?
You guys, I'm going to stop you real quick. You guys have, because I don't know if you're going to talk about this or not. If you do, great. But you talked about pressure at one point, Noah, and I think that is
I was just going to say that.
Boy, and I will stop, and you guys can continue. Yeah. But there are things that are, I don't want to like hype this up, but that is one of the top things in our culture today that we are not doing with our kids.
Yeah.
And so I'll let you guys speak to that, because when you talk that really struck a chord in me of like, yes, like we need this in our children of all ages. Yeah. We need this.
Yeah. Yes. Because we're trying to remove resistance, we're trying to remove pressure, and that's what actually helps us grow.
Yeah. Yes. That's one of the things we say is we provide pressure, but in a positive, contained way. Because why are kids getting destroyed nowadays? Because they get into a pressure situation and they make a stupid decision because they don't know what to do with that. But peer pressure, the cultural pressure, whatever it is. So we love that with the play. It brings a lot of pressure. You have to get up there, come into the homeschool groups, right? And doing a play in 1 week. I mean, hello, that's some pressure. But it's great because in that moment, most people will say in the pressure moments, oh, that wasn't me. When I got angry, when I yelled at somebody, when I ran off the stage crying, like that wasn't me. That was just a moment of pressure. But actually that is us. That's something inside you that came out when the pressure hit. And so I think that's something, sadly, a lot of parents and communities are trying to remove all the pressure, make things as easy as possible for their kids. But then it's like, all the analogies. One is weightlifting. How are you going to get bigger muscles if you're not lifting anything? Clearly, you need some resistance to grow the muscle. And so for young people, they have to be understanding, grow the muscle of learning to deal with pressure so that as life comes, which will dump tons of pressure on them, they'll be able to cope with that and move forward on it.
And problem solving, just stuff going on backstage that you have to quickly decide what to do, good decision making under pressure.
And
thinking outside the box, not allowing your mind to think this is the only way this can be done. This is the only way. No, there are other ways, and get your mind outside of that and be able to look at it. Communication. I mean, in order to get something of this magnitude done, the amount of communication that has to go on between team members and organization and making sure you've hit your deadlines and you're efficient with your time. I mean, all of these things, it just builds people.
Two of the main things that any person looking, an employer looking to hire, they're looking for how they express themselves and how they write. That's communication. And so like people's, the artists, they need to go learn theater. Like, no, like everybody needs to learn how to communicate, because that literally every vocation of life, you need to know how to communicate well. So we love that. A lot of our graduates are pastors, they are nurses, they are doctors, they are electricians, they are construction workers. And why? Because they've got the burden to go communicate, maybe not in the field of theater or the arts, but they're looking to communicate. And that's what we love. And then I think two of the big ones that popped in my mind were camaraderie / community. Why is social media huge? Why is Facebook and all the other things huge? The kids are desperate for community, and they get on somewhere where they feel like they have community. Theater is huge in that, of giving wholesome community. And then you have a big thing. Right, if you do it right. And there's a big project to all work together on, and then you all work together on it, and then you achieve it, and then there's a sense of satisfaction. Whereas other places, we don't have something we're all working on that has a conclusion that we can celebrate and then do something else. We're like in this never-ending, just work on stuff, keep doing stuff. Where theater gives you a great thing to work on, it gives you an end point, gives you a celebration point, and then you can start back over in that. So there's so many things.
One of the things I've observed is a sense of confidence that many people who participate in theater come away with and it is probably the result of all these things that you've already mentioned. But there's a self-confidence that comes from knowing you did your thing and you did it well, and it meant something to people. They express that gratitude with applause and a standing ovation. And so it seems to be a healthier form of affirmation than what seems to be the trend, especially on social media these days.
And if we could just say, we're doing film as well, and there's just I love both of them, but the thing that you get with live theater of the relationship with that audience, like you just mentioned, how they respond and how they are engaging in it. And I think that's very important to keep going, even though film is huge and we're involved in film and doing films, but you don't engage with watching a film in the same way you do watching a live production. And I've even found, being here in DC and other places taking these shows, people need to even learn how to respond to something like this. They are so used to movies and not used to interacting with live people that it's like they're used to just consuming rather than being a part of the process. And I think that's another beautiful thing that this thing of live theater does. And of course, as a believer, the thing that keeps me understanding the absolute imperativeness of this thing, and also how to keep it grounded and doing it in a way that would be honoring to the Lord, is that I truly believe, my core belief about communication is that it is an attribute of God. I only have it because I'm made in his image. It's not something that is novel. It's because I'm made in his image that I have this ability to communicate. And when I understand that, it gives me a sense of responsibility of what I'm going to do with that thing, because it's literally a part of God, and he has gifted it to me to be able to communicate with him and communicate him to the world. So I have a sense of responsibility. I don't, just because I'm an artist, I can't go and just communicate whatever I think and feel. There's that sense of it needs to be something that would reflect my Lord, and in the right way, as this is part of him. And then also it tells me more about him as I do this thing of communication, and I dissect it and I look at it, and I'm looking at a part of who he is. He is the Logos, and that's why our ministry has named the theater the Logos, the Word. He is the Word, the living Word. And so as I look at communication, I'm studying him, and it delights me, because I was thinking just the other day, a quick little analogy. I'm standing in the wings, right, getting ready to go out for my part. and I'm looking at the other side of the stage, and there's people preparing and doing things, and then coming and standing in the wings. And there's a young man who comes up beside me. He's gathering his prop, putting his thing on, standing in the wings. And right on the right moment, he comes out right on that music cue that I've told him. When that chord changes, buddy, I want you on the stage when the chord changes. And the thought hit me, wow, so much of life happens in the wings. I'm never ready to do what God wants me to do out on the main stage if I haven't been faithful in the wings. And so to not look at being in the wings as something that is a waste of time, all of that prep, all of that waiting, all of that. And when my master director says, all right, Nicole, the chord has changed, go out. It's time to go out on the stage. I'm right there for my cue because I've waited and prepared in the wings. It's things like that. So when I look at this thing that
you've learned your lines, you've prepared,
yes,
you've gotten your makeup on, you know,
yes.
Everything is there's a sense of preparation.
And
it's
I would say it actually it goes even a layer deeper than that too, because we're talking about, and I know you can extrapolate this to other people, but we're talking about people who are putting on costumes, doing their makeup, and going on stage. But that doesn't make up the whole team, because the entirety of the team are the people who built the sets, or the people who are running the rigging, or the people who are stage directing, or the people who are managing the backstage. Understanding, I think that's the other thing that theater does, is that not everyone can be the person on the stage, just like not everyone can be the person operating that fly loft, just like not everyone can be the person operating that soundboard back there. And frankly, they probably don't want to, right? They're like, I'm so thank God for the guy or the girl who's doing that, because I don't know how to do it. I don't want to know how to do it. And they love it, right? So that's the other piece of the team, where it's like that theater teaches you is everybody has a role. Everybody has a job, and excellence happens when they're all executing it in their positions.
And another part of the whole experience is the audience. So I guess as we're coming to the end, what would you say to people who want to introduce, they're excited, they're hearing about this, and they want to take their kids to the theater? And how would you encourage them to engage? Like, should they applaud after each scene? Like what's kind of the way for a healthy viewer to engage with theater?
I think the more they engage, and that's why for us, like we always say, subject matter is so important, because you want to be careful what you're engaging in. But it's yes, you need to engage. I think people have lost that, and that when you don't respond, you don't let it hit. The word Shema comes to mind. It's a responsive. It's I hear and respond, and it's so necessary that the word. They're actually speaking about Museum of the Bible in the Old Testament, the Shema. There literally was not a word for obey. There was only a word for hear, because the word hear meant I would respond, I would obey. And I think we've lost that in this generation. So as people are going to the theater, you do want to respond, yes, because that's good for you to process what you've heard and act on something. As in life, when we hear something, we should act on it, either to do it or to reject it. And so I think learning that in the theater world is vitally important too.
Put their phones away. Don't look at anything. Focus in on the production, and as you get moved, then respond to it.
That's special.
We love hearing them laugh and clap and cry.
That's special for you guys, because I've experienced this as well, where you're looking at a script and you go, oh, people are going to really laugh at this, and people are going to really applaud at this. And then you get into a scene, nobody laughed. And then all of a sudden in the next scene, the thing that you thought was just is just a line. People are like applauding, they're laughing, they're cheering. And as a person on stage, you're like, wow, like this, like that's how interesting. What just, like, there's no way they should have been doing that. And there's an energy that comes from that as well. So
and each person in that audience helps make that personality of that certain audience.
There's a freedom in that as an audience member to connect with those things that you're connecting with. So
And I think if they will do that, we went to New York the other day and watched a play, and I was saddened because most everybody around underneath were really engaged but the people around us were kind of uptight, and they didn't want to clap or respond, and it kind of dampened you. You're trying to respond and clap and do things, and that needs to be a camaraderie that is free in an audience. So I've been glad to see that growing. When we first came to DC, I said, wow, DC's audiences are very staid, very very But then they really started to understand, wow, this is something I really want to respond to. And it's been wonderful. We've had some of the best audiences in the world are here in DC.
Well, one of my actually the last time I went to see this particular production, I showed up and I was sitting up in the balcony. This time, I've kind of sat several places, but this time I was sitting up in the balcony, and right in front of me was a row of probably 7 to 11-year-olds. And they were so into it, and they made me more excited to be there, because I'm like, oh, this is my third time. I'm going to be watching for some of the weird things that happen on stage. But they were so into it that I got pulled into it, and in a whole new way. So I totally agree that the audience can really shape the experience. But it's kind of like a whole team thing, because there's the people on stage, there's the writers, there's the producers, there's the stage hands. Every part of this all weaves together to a great experience, and I think that's one of the brilliant things about theater. Well, thank you guys for spending this time with us, for talking about homeschooling and how we can engage the world around us and let culture let ourselves engage culture in a healthy way. And thank you also for talking about how we can be impacted by good stories, and how those can establish a pattern of growth in us. And I appreciate you sharing some of your stories, how you got involved in this whole thing, and from the ground as children. I think of the kids who our people are going to be listening to this, and their kids are going to have something spark because they heard this conversation. So thank you for investing in in our audience. But thank you all for joining us today, everybody in our audience. We encourage you to check out Logos Theater Productions. You can find their link in the show notes or in the comments. And we welcome you also to join HSLDA. If you're a homeschooler and you want access to more amazing resources through membership with HSLDA, it'd be great for you to join us and continue to make these kind of programs possible. Thank you all, and have a great day.